The 2024 college football season has come to a close, and Ohio State, congratulations to you on winning the national championship last night. I know that it looked like it was going to be a blowout early, but Notre Dame came back, fought hard, and Ohio State had to hold off and have one good last drive to put the game away. I want to talk a little bit about that. And the Miami Hurricanes got their final poll result. They finished in 18th. They were finished ranked 18th in the AP poll for the end of the year. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well as just kind of some upcoming things that to be noted. So, first of all, regarding the college football playoff, I've already mentioned this on some shorts, but absolutely, absolutely, it was a success. I think that there is room for improvement. It's fun interacting and hearing everybody's different ideas of how you would tweak it and what you would make work. But as a whole, I think it is significantly better. I think even the 4 team was better than what we had had, but anywhere in that 8 to 16 range is going to be really good. I honestly think 8 seems about right. The fact that Miami was even having like a slight possibility of squeezing in this year seemed not right. They did not seem like a national championship caliber team. I can't speak for some of the other teams, but the fact that all teams ranked 9 through 12 lost in the first round of the college football playoff shows me that. However, I don't expect that we are going to go backwards to less teams involved unless there's some sort of financial um, maneuvering that takes place to do that because more teams for a large part of the pie is significantly better because more teams want more money. And we know that despite what we want to think that money is going to rule the sport, and that's just the way it is. Obviously, there are major issues with the transfer portal that I believe still need to be taken care of. And I'm going to assume over the next couple of years, they're going to get some of these things ironed out. It certainly feels to someone who's been a longtime college football fan, we went from one extreme, which was if you even take a small compensation or you're getting monetized on your own YouTube channel, like that was illegal to now you can just be flat out paid by schools essentially. And so it's quite a dramatic shift, but this happens a lot with policy is that a dominant policy that has been around for a long time, and people get upset and frustrated and then they just go all the way to the other extreme. And I don't know. It's kind of your call if you think that this is ruining college football or not. I wouldn't say that it's ruining it, but it is definitely a new era of college football where it's your loyalty to players is probably going to be a lot more short-lived and you're just going to enjoy things more on a season by season um, basis. You're just not going to be falling in love with a lot of these guys and having them on the team for 4, 5, 6 years. There's always going to be exceptions. There are always going to be guys that are going to choose loyalty to their teams. But just the way it is right now, players are going to be jockeying for maximum compensation and jockeying for maximum playing time that they want to parlay into obviously a future career. So you've got a lot of dynamics here and I don't know. I don't even really claim to have a solution. Um, I I tend to just err on the side of like sponsorship deals seem great, but being paid um, directly by the school, that seems like overboard, but I'd also don't really come across as like shaming any of these players for getting money that's being offered to them because it's a good business decision. And for a lot of these guys, this is going to be the peak of their football career. And so it's okay to be a star. And because a lot of these guys are not going on to professional careers. Now, of course, the top players who are most likely to go on to the pros are going to be the ones who are most likely to be compensated the best. But there's just going to be give and take here. And we're certainly not going back to no paying of players. And so, are we going to have a Wild West? Are we going to have some form of commitment based things? I could see something along the lines of NIL deals being um, commensurate on amount of years that you play at a school, I think escalator clauses could be something that would be maybe beneficial to college football as a whole, the schools and the players. Like, your first year you would get 500,000, and then if you come back for the second year, they'll give you 1 million, and third year they give you 2 million, and fourth year they give you 4 million. Maybe some sort of an escalator clause for these NIL contracts would give a little extra reason for players to stay around and reward loyalty. But again, all this is going to just come down to whatever people decide um, is going to work best. And I don't know if there's going to be any sort of rules put into place, but I would certainly think that if you are a school, you want to be attracting the top talent, and there is a benefit to having guys who are with your school for a long time. But it's certainly going to get to a point where you're going to see multiple guys in the NFL who were on 3 or 4 different college football teams, and that's just the nature of what we're in. So I'd be very curious. So whether you're watching live or on replay, first of all, hit that subscribe button. This is Metropolitans. This is YouTube's smallest New York Mets, Miami Dolphins, and Miami Hurricanes as well channel. But what would you do, to practically speaking? Because I think going back to nothing, going back to um, zero compensation, or just I don't think we're ever going back to that at this point. I think Pandora's box has been opened, and there is no putting that lid back on. But what would you do to, or maybe nothing at all? Maybe you're perfectly fine with what it is, and it's almost it's because I think for so many people, it's even crazier than professional sports, where at least with professional sports, you have contracts. It's like everybody's signing 1 year clauses with opt outs. So I don't know. I don't know. Do you put a limitation on how many times guys can transfer? Um, I've always had issue with coaches can transfer, and then guys who sign up to be under a coach were stuck there and couldn't easily get out, or they'd have to give up a year. So I don't have to do that. I do think we need to move the transfer portal window past the national championship game. I think that's one thing that needs to be done sooner rather than later. That would be the one quick fix that I would advise, is just make it so the transfer portal window doesn't open. It could open today, right? Like the game ended last night. It could open the day after the national championship game. And that would maybe give some sense of freedom with it. All right. So with that in mind, again, congratulations to the Ohio State Buckeyes, back-to-back national championships for the Big Ten, even though there's way more than 10 teams in there now. So the other part that I would say that is interesting to me in all of this is you now are starting to see, with a larger playoff system, maybe less conference and certainly less team domination. Now, I would not call this any sort of like Big Ten dynasty here that's been started. But when you have more teams in the mix, and I certainly believe it's unfortunate that it took us this long to get to a decent size playoff. Again, we can quarrel over 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 teams. We can differ on that, but it's significantly better than two teams being picked by a computer, or two teams just being picked by sports writers to face off. Or even, like I was alluding to way back in the day, sometimes you would have split national champions. Like you would have coaches would vote for one national champion, and sports writers would vote for a different national champion. Like there's something, this is significantly better than that. And again, because of the nature of competition, unless your team is the team that wins, you're probably always nitpick. And even if you are an Ohio State fan, you probably still feel like you were underseeded or something along those lines. And so we can't solve all of those problems, but I would certainly say that having an actual playoff where teams meet each other on the field is better than what we had previously had. Again, just based on this year, and we'd have to get a larger sample size, but based on this year, it looked like basically the top 8 teams were the 8 best teams. Um, Teams 9 through 12 all struggled. Teams 5 through 8 all beat teams 1 through 4. And so, based on how that played out, now again, you're just, in order to get everybody to work together, you've got to have all the conferences cooperating. So you've got to throw enough bones to enough conferences to make things work. So on to the Miami Hurricanes for next season. The biggest news, of course, is Carson Beck is coming in as the quarterback. So there will be continuity in the sense of having a an established college quarterback coming into the Hurricanes, but you are starting over in the sense of all your receivers and quarterback all have to work together in a new way to get things functional. So that's going to be very interesting. The Hurricanes had just a lot of difficulty with putting away teams that they should put away this season. And um, while I was streaming and covering the Hurricanes throughout the fall, it was before this channel was invented, but I kept saying, like, yes, the Hurricanes are undefeated. Yes, they're looking good record wise, but they were not winning games the way that you should win games against teams that a top team is supposed to win those games. And honestly, seeing that ranking of 18 at the end of the season, I was surprised. I actually thought there was a good argument for Miami to be unranked by the end of the season with their bowl game performance and how they finished the rest of the season. I just thought I thought that was reasonable, or certainly in the low 20s, 23, 24, somewhere in that range. I was very surprised, and I understand where they were ranked, but just based off of how they finished the season, um, it was so lackluster, and I don't even want to say disappointing because after I got partway through the season, it was obvious to see that they were being carried by one player, and that's a hard way to win um, at any level, but especially at college football. It's hard to win when you're basically being carried by one player. And so hopefully with all of the transfer portal things working out, we will get a lot more balance in this, and the Hurricanes can put together a roster that will gel and seem to get better. Like where the Hurricanes started the season, I feel like they actually took some steps backwards. And I'm not going to say that Cristobal is on the hot seat yet, but bringing in another quarterback, if the Hurricanes are not in the playoff next year, I think then we could definitely be having conversations a year from now that go strongly in the direction of Cristobal being on the hot seat or maybe not being around a year from now. But hopefully, as a Hurricanes fan, hopefully they can get some of those things figured out and make some of those adjustments that they need. And that's basically where I have. So I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on the transfer portal? What are your thoughts on the portal and your team? If you're a Hurricanes fan, that's great. But even if you're not, what's your outlook for next year? What are your hopes? How is the transfer portal looking for your team and filling the holes that you need, and as well as the incoming classes of things? So you're going to just see lots of mobility. You're going to see lots of these older guys are going to maybe get extra shots moving into a school where they can get a starting position as, a fifth year senior that they didn't have. So that could be something interesting as well. Vitalik, good afternoon to you. So we're just wrapping up. I believe that the college football playoff was a success. I think it would be better if they had a few less teams. I think 8 teams would have sufficed. And you could have just take the top 8. Or if you want to include all the conference champions and then go out to 16, but then still seed them, I would still seed them 1 to 16, just because I feel like that's slightly more reliable than the way they did it this year. Miami Hurricanes have Carson Beck coming in as their quarterback for next year. So we talked about that. And we just talked about trying to solve the transfer portal problem. So I'd love to know for any of you. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think it really seems like really only the top 8 teams that made the playoff this year deserve to be there. Most of teams 9 through 12 were beaten soundly. However, if there's this desire that you want all the conference champions to get in, then I would want to make sure the only way you could really guarantee that, and maybe that's what they're trying to do, is guarantee the top 8 and the conference champions. But it's clear to see that just because you're a conference champion doesn't mean you're built for a playoff. And so I don't know how to do it other than you'd obviously have to start an extra week earlier and do more home games, and then or do I don't know. I don't know exactly how to solve all of it, but and no matter what number you pick, someone's always going to say someone was left out. But the point is not about who's left out. It's about making sure the top however many that you want in are in, and making sure that the conferences and the areas of the country that you want represented are also there as well. So if you're going to come and say, okay, we want to make sure that all the major conferences and the best independent, i.e. Notre Dame, or the best minor conference, and I think it's good. I think it is good for those teams to have those representation because that's how you're going to encourage smaller schools and help them with recruiting. And in fact, I wouldn't be opposed to having maybe the top two teams that are not from a major conference, like in a conference, not Notre Dame here. I think you have to consider Notre Dame as a major conference team, essentially, because they want to stay independent, and I get why it benefits them, but it shouldn't really guarantee them too much. Like I think they're over guaranteed what their spot is worth, but they bring the viewership, so that's pretty much all that matters. But it was good to see that we actually got a couple of blue blood programs, long-standing programs, Notre Dame, Ohio State, battling each other for the national championship. I think it's good for college football. I know the SEC fans won't love it, but I think it's good for college football to not have the SEC having two teams represented in the championship game automatically. Good afternoon, Lisa. Thank you guys for hanging out here. This is my first, I think it's my first live on this channel. So I'm trying to do the work, get this channel up to 50 subs. We're close. So you can go horizontal live. You can go horizontal. So I'm just sitting at home on my computer. So you can go horizontal under 50. But to go vertical, you've got to be the 50. So I'm trying to put in the work. Trying to put in the work to get the 50. Yeah, it is. It's Florida cold here. I know it's cold everywhere. It was actually, I saw it was snowing in northern Florida today. So up in the panhandle at home, it was snowing. And I know like Louisiana all the way down to the Gulf Coast, like it was snowing in the Gulf of America, which is the new name, I guess. The Gulf of America, it's snowing. It was snowing into the Gulf of America today. So hope everybody is staying warm and safe with everything. Yeah, snowing in Louisiana, snowing in Alabama, snowing in Mississippi, like southern Mississippi, deep south. Snowing in northern Florida, crazy. I don't know if it still is, but it was this morning. So anyway, I'm just trying to figure out all the college football's problems and all the Miami Hurricanes problems. So I am going to be going out and delivering tonight as well. I haven't decided if I'm streaming. My voice is a little rocky, so we're doing that. Yeah, crazy weather. Good for a good football weather. So the snow game this weekend. So you guys already know the deal because we're over here, but this is Metropolitans, and this is for anybody who's watching on replay. Please hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 50 subscribers. This is YouTube's smallest New York Mets, Miami Dolphins, and Miami Hurricanes channel. So we're going to be building out a nice content library covering, there's not much Dolphins or Hurricanes to cover right now, but we'll be jumping into Mets, and spring training games will be starting here soon as well. Yeah, 7 more subs. It's all we need. So we are on our way here. But if you've got thoughts on the college football playoff in general, the format of the college football playoff, I would love to hear that. Did you like the 12 team? Do you want to go up to 16? Do you want to drop down to 8? I don't think we're ever going below, 8 to 12 at this point anymore. What do you think about the transfer portal with players moving in and out? Are you good with that? Or are you to the point where you're just like, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it anymore. And if so, like, again, I don't think the transfer portal is going away, but what would you practically do to fix it? Because, it's easy to say you don't like it, but, at this point, this money is not going away. And the player mobility is going to be a big thing. It's just going to be what players are and are wanting. And then I guess maybe a side question, is it time for the NFL to really start creating a minor league for guys who want to go directly from high school, but you usually need like a couple years, right? Like you're not going to see many 18, 19-year-old kids who are ready to handle the toughness of an NFL schedule. But is there a benefit to the NFL exploring creating a true minor league system where teams can draft out of high school and college and maybe increase your draft? What is it, 7 rounds for the NFL draft? So if you instead did a draft that was say 25 rounds, and you're drafting guys, and then you have an actual, not just a practice squad, an actual form of a minor league roster where high school guys can just be directly developed into an NFL system. Um, is that something? Is that something that we think could happen down the road? I think that there would be benefit to it, and I think what the NFL could do is they could strategically place the locations of those teams, because you could essentially double your reach, and then put teams close but not exactly next to where they are. So, for example, you currently have the Kansas City Chiefs. You could put their minor league football roster in St. Louis, right? So there is no team in St. Louis, so you could bring Kansas City, and you could call them the St. Louis Chiefs or whatever, something like that. You could do the same thing with like Green Bay. You could throw a team in more of the central Wisconsin. So you could still have them geolocated pretty close to where the main teams are, and but covering a different area. So you could have, again, Minnesota Vikings could go up to they could have their minor league team in the Brainerd Lakes area, or somewhere over in like South Dakota or something like that. So you could kind of naturally place minor league rosters where they're only a couple hour drive from the team. If you need to move someone up or down, you could get more players, more reps. You could get more eyeballs on more players, and you could have, I mean, you could even have some form of multiple mid-season drafts throughout the year, of where you could just draft from other teams, minor leagues, or compensation, or even some form of a borrowing of players, or anyway, some form of that. I just wonder if that would benefit the NFL to actually expand their brand, have NFL minor league, and have a second team that's essentially the minor league team within, 2 to 3 hours of the main team, but reaching a new fan base, and obviously providing cheaper tickets and a better opportunity for those teams to play. And I think you could probably make them work in college football stadiums or other things like that. Find some good college towns to make that work. So I don't know. I don't know if that's something that the NFL would ever consider adopting, but I certainly wonder if that's maybe become something here too, as more of a competition really to college football, or maybe it's just not worth it for them to put the resources into it, and they just let the colleges develop all the resources and pay those players, and do the development for them. I'm not sure, but I certainly wonder, with the NFL continuing to expand their brand, if there might be room for that. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on transfer portal, hear your thoughts on the college football playoff, Miami Hurricanes football for the next season with Carson Beck coming in, as well as your team, whoever your college football team is. I know we have Syracuse's represented in here. Vitalik, I don't know who your team is, but anybody else too, as you're watching on replay, what is your outlook? What needs to be fixed for your team, and what are you looking forward to for next year? Still snowing up in the Panhandle. Yeah, it is. It's relatively nice here. It's like 55 degrees. So, but it has been a winter. It has just been a winter for pretty much everybody across the country. Crazy, crazy weather. So if you're watching this live or on replay, Penn State. All right. Penn State, by the way, they also finished. Let me see if I still have this up here. Where did Penn State finish? Because they finished pretty high up. Let me see. I want to find the final poll. Final poll here, if I can find the whole thing. We're gonna look this up. See if I can. Maybe I can screen share it too. Let's see what I can do. Let's see if I can find it. So there's the Beconic. They haven't even updated. They released it, but they haven't updated it here yet. All right, I'm not finding an actual poll that has it all the way. Yeah, I was just trying to see if Syracuse snuck into the final rankings. I don't know how they did in their bowl game. So the Big Ten finished really strong. Here it is. Syracuse did finish ranked. And ironically, they finished ranked number 20. Miami finished ranked number 18, even though Syracuse beat Miami head to head at the very end of the season. Penn State finished number 5, Vitalik, because they had a good. They won their one playoff game. So Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Georgia, Arizona State, Boise State, Tennessee, Indiana, Mississippi, SMU, BYU, Clemson, Iowa State, Illinois, Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, Syracuse, Army, Missouri, UNLV, Memphis, and Colorado. That's the final rankings. But I would definitely not have Miami that high. There's no way I think you could reasonably justify having Miami ahead of Syracuse, especially since Syracuse beat Miami head to head at the near the end of the season. So I think that's sometimes where that name recognition helps a little bit, because I was definitely not impressed with Miami down the home stretch. The record the first half of the season was great, but how they did against teams that they were supposed to beat easily, not the greatest, and also just how they finished the season was not good at all. So let me see if I can screen. I'm learning because I can share screen. They're making it easier to share the screen. You can see right here where the mouse is. That's the final. Penn State, Georgia, Arizona State, Boise State, Tennessee, Indiana, Mississippi, SMU, BYU, Clemson, Iowa State, Illinois, Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, Syracuse, Army, Missouri, Colorado. So that is the rankings there that we have for the season. Yeah. Well, it's so hard, in order to have some sort of sustained success in college football, you have to have consistency at the quarterback. And for a lot of these quarterbacks, it takes a year or two to get it. And then by year 3 or year 4, they're either a junior or senior. And if they're really good, they get drafted after their junior year or maybe their senior year. So it's really hard to string those together unless you're a destination program where players are willing to go and take. So it's difficult. But yeah, I would definitely say, based on those final rankings, Miami should be ranked 20th or below. I was actually expecting them to not be ranked. I just didn't think that was not a strong finish at all. I don't think Miami would be a favorite against South Carolina, who's ranked behind them. I don't think Miami would be a favorite against Missouri. I mean, even Army. I don't even know if they'd be ranked against Army or a favorite against Army. So it is what it is. It doesn't really matter much at this point. It's just kind of like all right, well, that's where we ended the year. Miami was a top 4. They were ranked in the top 4 for a chunk of the season, but definitely did not have the strength to do that. Well, so we're going to wrap this up here for now. So again, if you're watching replay, please hit that like and subscribe. We're on our journey to get to 50 subscribers here, and just keep building and building out content as much as that. So yeah, you guys got the snow. Got the snow going on. Well, everybody who's got the weather, all right, Lisa, I'll go check that right now. It's a good time before everybody gets home and it gets crazy. So I will go check that now, and appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Again, hit that like and that subscribe to YouTube's smallest New York Mets, Miami Dolphins, and Miami Hurricanes channel. Appreciate all you guys. Talk to you soon.